All right. Okay. So again, this session is dedicated and focused on the wonderful document, A Business Plan. Again, I'm pleased to be your facilitator today. So our objective is to understand more about creating a business plan, understand why it's a good document to have, and how you can use it to help launch and grow your company. With business plans, in order for them to actually matter and to make sense, you have to activate the information that's in it. It cannot be a plan that sits on a shelf. With that being said, at any point when you are looking to launch and grow your company, keyword grow, it becomes a vital document to be able to do so. I get a lot of questions. Do you even need a business plan in this day and age? I know a lot of us get excited about, we have this idea, we're ready to go forward in our companies. What is the first step? Do we need to really slow down our momentum around our excitement to be able to have the process of writing a document, which can be boring, to be quite honest. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of leg lifting. Do you really need it? Well, absolutely. In this presentation, those of you who know me, I am research-based. I'm also data-based. And so these are not opinions of my own per se, but they're actually from multiple sources. And so one of the main sources for this particular presentation came from the Complete Book of Business Plans, Simple Steps to Writing Powerful Business Plans by Joseph A. Cavello and Brian J. Hazelgren. And these fellows, they basically say a business plan helps entrepreneurs and managers think through strategies, balance their enthusiasm with facts, and recognize their limitations. It will help you avoid potentially disastrous errors like undercapitalizing, creating negative cash flow, hiring the wrong people, selecting the wrong market, underestimating the competition, and pursuing the wrong market. Additionally, it's evidence that you have initiative. It shows that you have discipline to focus your energies on an important project and that you understand how to achieve progress and growth, problem solving along the way, as well to achieve your ultimate goals. So people ask, I do have an idea, but I don't know how to make this a business. That's one reason to write a business plan. Or you have launched, you are new, and you do want to start a business. So just what's the blueprint? Finding funding for your business. That is another key reason for a business plan. And you want your business to grow. At each stage of these, there's a different approach to writing the business plan that makes a difference depending on what stage of development you're in. And we're going to talk about what those differences are. So when you're looking to begin any company, I'm going to move our faces. When you're looking to begin any company, sometimes as new entrepreneurs, we get excited again about our capabilities, our gifts, our talents, and we want to put that into the world in the form of a business. But real businesses answer problems that others have, that customers have. So I question folks, what problem are you trying to solve? That is the starting place for idea generation to determine what you would put a business around. So the problems that you're trying to solve, those actually become, again, the foundation from which businesses grow. Then you have to think about, if you're solving a problem with your product or service, then is your solution creative? Is it high impact, or has it been done before? Is it even feasible for us to be able to do? Being able to look at our market and see, you know what? Probably not launching a skiing company in Kansas. It's probably not a feasible thing to do, even though I love skiing, right? Would someone pay for your solution? Would they want to pay for that? And would they want to pay for your solution compared to anyone else's solution? What's the value of your solution? All of these are great starts to be able to look at, do I have an idea that's worth putting a business solution around, as opposed to, I'm gifted, I want to be able to put a business out there. See the difference? So as we continue on and looking at the basics around businesses and idea generation, there was this really great clip about the difference between idea generation and coming to the market with a business. So I'm going to play that real quickly.
When we think about a founder having an idea, we're usually imagining someone getting some form of inspiration for an app or a service, some sort of widget, basically a product. And then they go and they realize that product, and then they go introduce it to their customers. And almost universally, their customers reject that product. Why is that? Because customers don't buy products. Customers buy solutions to problems.
Okay, you get that idea of solutions to problems. He goes on with this.
If we know that customers buy solutions to problems, then we should start there. Start with the problem. And we can do that by teaching our founders how to ask customers about their problems. When you hear a customer's problem, you can use that as your source of inspiration to creatively come up with solutions to that problem. And then when your founders go and describe their solutions to their customers will turn from wary into enthusiastic because someone is finally listening to their problems and doing something about it.
Absolutely. It's an easier sell, wouldn't you say?
For sure.
It's definitely an easier sell. So as we now transition from looking at, okay, I have a business, I have a concept, or I'm early in my business, then transitioning all of that to beginning to write your business plan. There are various sections of the business plan that we're going to tackle now. And we're going to start with your product service description. There's some key elements with the business plan that come before this, but in terms of the actual heart, the meat of your business plan, this is where we're going to start today. So it sounds pretty basic, what the product or service does. You want to be able to include in your business plan how it works, how the product or service works. Now, if you're in the service industry, like we mentioned, we have a general contractor on, you might not necessarily have a tangible product other than the building and the skills of it, but you might want to talk about the process for which your service works. What's the cost to be able to produce your particular product or service? What is that cost behind there? Additionally, how do you distribute or deliver your product or service? That delivery and distribution mechanism is so key because, again, if we have a product or service, but we haven't spent time to really think about the delivery of that product or service, or even really think about how we improve upon the delivery of that product or service if we are in growth mode, then that is a missed opportunity that our business plan should be addressing, but it hasn't. How do you package your product or service? Now, if you have a service such as myself, in addition to the nonprofit that I have, I do have a graphic design and communication services company. I too, even though it is a service-based business, I have to watch how I package my service. What does that look like? What images am I putting out? Who am I trying to reach? How we package and promote it, that absolutely matters. Pricing descriptions and considerations about what our customers need. Those are also important to be able to understand. What's the pricing description? How do we discuss our pricing without giving away key information in the business plan document? That's something that we can talk about. And then finally, this is really important, our features versus benefits of our product and service. Right now, I'm going to stop my share here. Welcome to all who have joined on. Right now, if I were to ask each and every one of you to describe your product or service, the features of it, in 2 to 3 sentences, I bet each of us could give a pretty decent elevator pitch about our product and service and the features that we offer. However, the features are only one piece of an actual business plan and communicating about our business as well. The features, I'll continue to give myself since I have permission to talk about me. When I started my graphic design and communication services company, I had a page, services, and I listed every single service that I provided to folks. And I said, here, if you choose CML Collective, you have one point of contact for multiple capabilities. And that was nice, but it was overwhelming to people, all of the features that I had, because I didn't do the next step, which is most important, and that is translating those features into benefits for my clients. Yes, we can talk about you make a delicious product, it's tasty, it's gourmet, it's fantastic, but how do those features benefit your client or your customer? We're always available. We offer speedy service to help you XYZ. Remember when I said our businesses stem from ideas that are solutions to problems for the client? We then have to be able to talk about our businesses in ways that benefit our client, not necessarily run an exhaustive list of our features. Okay, does that make sense? Does anybody have questions about that? Remember, I invite you to include questions in the chat or just raise your hand as well. Let's keep going. So our product descriptions are really key. If you are just thinking about launching a business, here's where you need to spend a lot of time, your product and service description. If you cannot communicate your product or service, then you may not be ready to move forward in that effort. Okay, so after you talk about your products and services, the business plan also encourages you to talk about a company overview. Give your company overview. So this is basic information. It's your company name. Let's pause here though. With the company name, it's really important to establish a name that you can build a strong brand identity behind. Some people are like, okay, well, I like this particular name. It has meaning with me. That's great, but you need to be able to run it through checks and balances. Is that name actually available for you to use? There are several places for you to look, and I've included them on the PowerPoint, which everyone will receive a copy of this PowerPoint with my notes underneath it as well. So one place you can go is to kansas.gov. There's a business center where you can actually look and see name availability. You could also do a more informal search, and that's to Google a company name. Another place to go if you really also want to check and have a more exhaustive name search is to go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and perform a basic word search in their search database. And what this does is it lets you know if anyone has taken out a trademark registration on a particular name. You want to avoid that at all costs. Okay. There is one example. Again, with Create Campaign, we do not divulge specific client information, but I can share some illustrations. There is an example of one company who they shared a name with a similar company that was in a different part of the country. And although that company was in a different part of the country and had no interest, no inclinations to be able to expand to Wichita, the mere fact that a Wichita-based company shared the name was enough for this particular company to send a cease and desist letter to this particular company in Wichita. Now, sometimes lawyers or attorneys can argue or make the case, well, hey, you're not planning to expand across the U.S. We're not planning to expand across the U.S. Could we just use the name geographically within the state of Kansas? However, for that particular company, it was a no-go. So again, we want to make sure that we do our due diligence even on our company names. All right, we'll continue on. So in addition on your company overview, you do want to include your launch dates. And if you haven't launched, then perhaps an estimated or anticipated launch date. You want to talk about the owners. If there are multiple owners of the company, you want to be able to describe the ownership structure. There is a difference between operating as a partnership, operating as a nonprofit, operating as a limited liability corporation. These are your legal structures. Legally structured and recognized entities do go through a startup process where they do have to file paperwork or documentation with Kansas Secretary of State's office if you're wanting to launch in Kansas. Other states, you can also, if you're a Wichita-based company and you want to, for example, use a product like LegalZoom. LegalZoom is an online paperwork filing service that basically has researched where the friendliest types of policies exist towards new starts. And so a lot of their starts occur in Vermont. So you could be a Wichita-based company, use LegalZoom, and they, because of Vermont's policies, could set you up there. But I speak specifically about what we handle most and what we see most often, and that is people in Wichita or other parts of Kansas actually structuring through the Kansas Secretary of State's office. Kansas Secretary of State's they handle all of the legal business filings for the state of Kansas. So if you're unsure about legal structuring and have questions about the benefits of doing so, the IRS, that link there, it will take you to just brief overview information about the different types of legal structures and why one may benefit your company more than another. Okay, and then also in the company overview, you want to include information about your mission, your vision, your values, perhaps. All of these will help you to better define and articulate your brand in your marketing portion of your business plan, and in your marketing that you take place and move forward from the business plan to actually putting it out in the marketplace. So yes, mission statements, vision statements, value statements, those all still matter. They help to build your corporate identity and your corporate culture. So when you are putting together these statements, really take some time to think about what's important to you and how your company is perceived as you deliver these products and services in the marketplace. Okay. In your company overview, you do want to include a present status. Just basically, if you're planning to launch, then describe that in your company overview. We anticipate being able to launch in XYZ. Or if you have been in existence for a while, putting your launch date, as we've already talked about. But if you're looking to grow, or if you're looking to find funders, then those are opportunities to describe your present status. And then last but not least, any kind of goals and objectives that you have as to communicating why you are putting together this business plan is something to include as well. If you are writing the business plan for purposes of funding, then you would include in the company overview. At this stage in our company's maturation cycle, we are looking at identifying potential investors and then writing goals and objectives around those. And I don't know how many of you all are familiar with the goal writing process called SMART goals, but you want to be able to create goals that are specific, they are measurable, which means you understand when and how they are achieved. You understand what success looks like because you have some metrics with them. They're attainable, they're within your reach, they're realistic or relevant, and they're also timely. So we've broken down that acronym for you all as you look at company goals and objectives. Okay, let's continue on. So and the next part of our business plan is the market analysis. Again, it's great to be able to have our own products, services, our passions, our skills, and our talent, but it must meet a client. In order to understand your clients who are out there, then we need to do a little bit of research, and that's where our market analysis comes into play. It will ask about your target market. Who are your customers and what do they care about? This is where you may gather information related to your demographics of your particular market. You might want to talk about discretionary income, family size, purchasing habits, things of that nature. The target market describes, again, who you are targeting and shows ways your company plans to get to your market quickly. We want to understand with our target markets, you know, what are some of the most valuable to your business and what are some of the least valuable? Not every market, not every client is worth going to chase as a business owner. When you're thinking about the clients who you want to be able to serve, create a profile from them. You know, where do they live? How much money do they have? What is their lifestyle like? So that way, when you begin to take your market analysis and begin to translate that research into actual marketing messages, you're able to craft messages that more so likely resonate with your target market because you spend some time thinking about who they are. That absolutely matters. That process of understanding more about your clientele, creating more informed information around who they are, how they live, that's called creating buyer personas. Okay. Buyer personas. I don't necessarily like to talk in jargon, but I do believe as business owners, it's important that we're aware of those particular types of terms when necessary. So buyer personas. And there's another thing in marketing and your market research where you may say, you know what, here is my particular preferred client, and you'll be able to describe them, but then you could have a secondary market. So Nikki, earlier in the call, you talked about that you're serving veterans and the transition that you'd like to make as well. Perhaps it's not just veterans and their families who's your primary market, but perhaps it's other service partners, other businesses who may be overrun or do not have the capacity to handle their client load that comes to them. Maybe you become a referral source and that becomes a key target market for you. The way that you talk to a veteran and its family is different than the way that you talk to a service partner who may become a referral partner, right? So being able to understand your target market in that regard as well. Some data sources where you can get information about your target market, of course, the US Census. There are some quick reports from the US Census Bureau that can break down just, again, size, scope of your particular audience, your market. But it's also interesting if you were able to look at demographic profiles by zip codes. The reason why zip code research is pretty great is because when you're looking at targeting a particular area of town with mailings, or you want to position your messages around certain things, then zip codes are a great way to be able to compile information. There is a website, unitedstateszipcodes.org, that is fantastic. It breaks down not only the boundaries within the zip codes, but it does have all the demographic information as well too. So that's a research source. WSU Libraries, they have a ton of different marketing journals and marketing databases that you can get in. And boy, when I tell you the type of information that you can find out in these marketing journals and and databases, it's incredible. A lot of these things are free. Many of these things, if the university does have the information, they're free for you all to be able to access. It's just a matter of accessing. There's one particular that I want to point out to you, and that's IBIS World, IBIS World. And again, we'll follow up with all of these resources for you all after this call. But they do industry reports, and the industry reports give you an automatic overview as to what is happening in your particular industry, what are threats that the industry is seeing, what are drivers for the industry. So that, again, as you are looking at expressing in your marketing plan and your business plan how your business is positioning itself, then you have the backing of tons of research to be able to help support your point. All you have to do is credit your source. Nielsen reports, we all know those consumer surveys. They also do contain really great information about customer spending and buying habits. So I definitely encourage you to look at Nielsen, and there's some others as well. But all that to say, market research is not just looking at what's a great color palette for this particular Instagram scheme. It is looking at what are the factors and the drivers to encourage and motivate my target market to be able to do business with me. So it's worth spending time. An additional part of your market analysis is looking at your competitor analysis. Again, when I first started, and also working with some of the business owners who I work with, they're so focused on our own businesses that they didn't want to look up and look at their competitors. Oh, I'm gonna beat them. I'm not even worried about them. I got this, right? And that's good to have confidence, but you also got to know how your competitors move, how they're positioning their messages. What are their products and service delivery styles? Where are you different from them? Even on Facebook, if you have a business organization page, they will also recommend similar pages for you to be able to follow just to see how their social media performance is. So yes, our competitor analysis is important. I would say pick a handful of your top competitors in your particular area to be able to, again, kind of look at, you know, who are their competitors, what are they doing, how are they promoting their products or services, what advantages or disadvantages you have comparing your product or service to theirs. One other thing you could do as well, it's a little different than a competitor analysis, but you could look at inspirational brands. If you were to get the best inspiration, motivation from a company that does what you're trying to do, who does it the best, who does it well? And kind of look at adapting some of their policies and practices to your own flavor and style. There's nothing wrong with that. What do they say? Imitation is one of the greatest compliments. Well, we don't want to steal and we don't want to copy, but we do want to be able to adapt if there's a practice that exists that we can benefit from in our companies and for our clients. I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions? Any thoughts? Going okay so far? Okay, let's keep it moving. All right, so once we get through with our market analysis and really spending some time there, then the next area that we want to look at is our marketing and sales channels. Now, I always get the question a lot, which I kind of hinted at earlier. What's the difference between my market analysis and then my marketing and sales plan? Well, again, there's a difference. That market analysis really looks at what's happening in the environment, who's your target market, what's happening with your competitors. Marketing actually begins to describe how you position and promote your brand in front of your customers. So I love this quote that says, brands create consumer trust and emotional attachments. Great brands aren't just known and trusted, they're loved. When we really think about this, one of the measures of success for business, we don't just want to create disparate or sometimey transactions from clients. We want repeat customers. We want customer loyalty. You got to be loved and you have to be trusted as a brand. I mean, think about it. Even in our own lives, we may prefer a certain type of car because their crash rating is lower. We trust our lives getting into that car, into that brand, right? The things that we eat, the things that we consume, we have to trust that they are doing right by us nutritionally and that they will not harm us, right? We have to think about our companies and our brands in that regard too. Someone is trusting us enough to be able to spend their money on our products or our services. They have to trust that we deliver and that we will not harm. So one way to generate trust, one way to generate love is to make sure that our brand identity is clear. You have to spend time thinking about, what is my brand? And again, if you've done the work to do your mission, vision, and values, you can start looking at, okay, well, here goes how I describe my brand, but it needs to be clear. How does your brand communicate a distinct benefit or a point of difference compared to competitors? So let's take the podcast example right now. There are tons of podcasts that have hit the market, not just in Wichita, but all over. What's the difference between them? Why would I listen to your podcast as opposed to anybody else's? I see Nicole Williams from Incredibly Sweet here. Amazing, phenomenal job on, treats, confections, and dipped strawberries. But why would I go choose Nicole's strawberries over going to Dylan's and buying my own strawberries and dipping those? Why would I choose Nicole's strawberries compared to a national retailer who does this? There has to be a distinct difference, right? There has to be a distinct difference. Okay. Let me hop back in. So then when we talk about marketing, I always do this. This isn't on the slide, but I'll give this to you. The difference between a regular advertising or promotion company and a marketing company that gets it is this. We don't want our actions to do anything outside of helping to meet our top business goals. So I'm going to give you something, and if you're taking notes, take this one down. When you begin to write a strong marketing plan, it must build from this. Number one, what are your top business goals? What are your top business goals? And I probably would say, don't have more than 3. Well, what are your top business goals? Secondly, what is the behavior that you need customers or clients to take to support your top business goals? What's the behavior? Because again, if we're going to have customers, we need to be able to have them behave in ways that support our top business goals. So in order for them to behave, we have to know which behaviors we want them to partake. Do we want them to call us? Do we want them to book with us? Do we want them to come visit us? What are those behaviors? The third thing from this, once you've identified the behaviors, you need to know what can you say to motivate their behavior and actions for them to be able to support your top business goals. What's the motivation? What do you need to say to encourage that motivation? This becomes our marketing messages. The fourth thing in this, the final area, and that is, where do you need to place your messages that are created to motivate client behavior for them to take an action that support your top business goals? Where will they encounter your messages? Where can they come upon your company's messages in ways that meet them in their everyday life, that show up in ways that will resonate with your clients and customers, in ways that don't show up as interruptions? Nobody likes to be interrupted, right? We get really irritated when we're going about the course of our day, and here comes marketing messages that we didn't solicit that appear and bombard us. So where do we place those messages in their everyday? That is how you begin to craft a strong marketing plan. It is not looking at, okay, I'm going to put my logo and I'm going to put up a social media channel and that's it. No. There are too many more touch points along our marketing experience. And for us to be able to truly have a comprehensive plan for marketing, it all needs to align with our top business goals, right? Absolutely. That's how you begin to build a comprehensive marketing plan. Any questions there? Okay, I must have you guys really thinking, right? You got some wheels turning? Okay.
Yeah.
So then with marketing, once we figure out, again, building our marketing plan like that, advertising just begins to look at the channels that you use to be able to promote your messages, okay? And when we think about all of the different ways that people intersect with our marketing messages, there's a lot of different areas: in person, over the phone, digital experiences, hard copy experiences, the actual customer service experience, all of those channels. So being able to build that brand loyalty and that brand love, you need to really look at all of the different platforms in which people touch your company and make sure that you are prepared to advertise, to communicate, to speak with them across multiple channels. It's not just a social media plan. And then lastly, in terms of marketing and sales, yes, you can market, but you also have to talk about your sales plan. So how will you actually plan to sell your products and services to your customers? Okay, is it going to be an e-commerce store? solely? Are you going to combine e-commerce with in-person events? Are you going to do a traditional where people call you up and activate your services that way? What is that sales plan? How many customer engagements do you need to have, or inquiries do you need to have to be considered relevant and to be considered on a good path to be able to pull clients from? If you only have 5 inquiries a month, is that going to get you, let me put it like this, if you only have 5 inquiries a month and you're only converting 25% of those inquiries, is that enough to generate the revenue that you need for your business, okay, for what you actually get to keep? So really spending time about what is that sales plan and revisiting that often, quarterly, looking at your sales strategies, plans. You might do it biannually, but you need to do it regularly. Again, we talked about that's how the business plan lives. It's not just something you write one time and put it away. You're referring to it constantly. And if you do it within the structure of a business plan, then that means everything is aligned, everything is integrated, everything is building vertically upon one another, as opposed to being something extra. We expend so much energy as business owners that everything that we need to do as much as possible should be directed at, again, our top business goals. Anything extra is a choice, but we shouldn't make those choices in the outside or absence of a plan. Business plans help keep us focused. Next area of your business plan is looking at your management structure. This is more than just describing the positions that are at play with your company. This is really also looking at your chain of command, how tasks are delegated, how work is approved, your span of control, and also centralization. Where do decisions ultimately get made in your company? So more than just, again, executive director, here's the title, CEO, CFO. What's the chain of command? What's the span of control? The last key piece of your business plan, before we talk about some of the more minor components to round it out, is your financials. When you are planning to go into a company and you are specifically writing a business plan to attract funding, your financials are the key element of your business plan. The key element. I say A as a disclaimer, the key element. Your investors and your bankers, they're going to look at your executive summary and they're going to look at your financials. So what needs to be in your financials in order for it to be seen as a full and round plan, comprehensive plan? Number one, you need to be able to describe how and where your business becomes profitable. Okay, you need to talk about how money flows in and out of your company. And you need to be able to communicate it in a way and in a format that investors and bankers are used to looking at, okay? So there's a couple of different reports or documents. The cash flow statement, it tracks, again, where cash is coming in from in your business and where it's going. You also look at your profit and loss statement. This shows, you know, are you making money or are you not? Your balance sheet, it gives a profile of your company's worth at a given moment in time. There are tons of templates, including some that a link that I've included from SCORE, their free business development service. They have a ton of templates. Many people use QuickBooks, or some people use Excel. Whatever that is, being able to cast and categorize your financials is just as important as any other part of your business plan. I will say this as well. If you are just planning to start up and you're looking to attract startup capital or things of that nature, then you being able to estimate your startup costs are going to be very important too. You might not have actual, you know, sales or things to be able to pull information from, but you should have a good accounting of what it's going to take to start up your company. Traditional lending sources like banks, they typically do not fund startups. So you're more so looking at angel investors, you're looking at family and friends. But even if it is family and friends, I would strongly encourage everyone, it's a business transaction. So put it appropriately on an agreement so that we don't want to fall out with our friends and our family over our companies. That's never a good place to be. Then lastly, when you have all of these different sections of your business plan written out, then circling back around and doing your executive summary is the best practice. Your executive summary should be 1 page. You'll find different resources out there that'll say, you know, did we pop out? Okay, not sure what happened there. Did you all get the information about the financials, or did we cut out?
I think you cut out where you said banks don't typically fund startups.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Well, that's all I said, other than your executive summary. So our executive summary really does need to be 1 page. It needs to highlight in very short, tight succinct language what the contents of the plan are. If you are asking for funds in your executive summary, you need to cite that ask and talk about the use of funds as well. Okay. And then the final portions, because
I do have a question about that.
Yes, go ahead.
Financial piece. So in going to a bank and asking for funding, are you expected to already be started up?
Many banks will, sorry, my internet's acting up now. Many banks will ask you to definitely have a demonstration of your financials. And so when we think about banks, let's just go ahead and think about banks. They are risk averse. They want to make sure that any loan funds that they give, that there is going to be more than a notion that they'll be returned back. And so that is why banks do not typically fund startups. There's just too much risk involved, not enough known involved. So that means startup owners have to be a little bit more creative in how they put together their financing packages for the early start phases of their business. Okay. Great question. Sorry about that, Paris. It looked like I popped out for just a second. There is a question, would you suggest to wait until after a year of being in business? Is that to secure bank funds, bank financing, Ty? Okay, in order to secure bank financing, if you would wait until being about a year in business, I would say it's never too soon to start the relationship with your bankers and bring them along the process and the journey, because although they do use specific criteria, including your credit, they'll see if you have any collateral, which are property or tangible items that you can put towards the loan, so that if the loan falters, they can come and collect for a value to minimize the risk. They look at your business model, if it truly is profitable. They also look at, let's see, credit, capital, collateral. They look at your ownership, the compensation of your company to see, or composition, excuse me, of your company to see if you have the talent and the expertise to actually execute a profitable business model. I said all these components to then say the relationship comes into play when we're making character determinations. Banks and bankers, they're still people, and there is some character that also goes along with their decisions as well. They're much more likely to give the benefit of the doubt of financing to someone who they have a relationship with. So while you might want to wait to actually do a formal request for funding from your banker, start that relationship now. Start it now and let them watch you grow up in your company. Let them help determine, and ask them questions. If I'm trying to position my company to build business credit, what are some things that I need to do? What would you recommend? That's what bankers are there for. They're part of our teams, and they're to be seen as a relationship builder if you have a good banker. Great question. The only other piece to the PowerPoint that we were going to look at is, again, just that executive summary, and then a cover sheet, some tips for creating a cover sheet in your table of contents. And finally, your appendix section, that just looks at all the supporting documentation that you would use if you mention a market research study, for example, including some of the pages of the market research. That rounds out your good business plan. What questions do you all have about the purpose of the plan or any of the content that I have shared with you in this presentation? This is our talk time.
So tell me the process of presenting a marketing plan for funders. Like, okay, so you develop your plan. Where do you go from there?
Okay, and do you mean specifically your marketing plan or your business plan?
Your business plan.
Okay. All right. So first of all, if you are looking at presenting a business plan to funders, then you do need to write your plan, but you also need to do research about your funders. That is an initial purpose right there. You need to be able to know what they fund, what they're interested in, past deals that they've done, what they're looking to be able to fund, and then be able to place and position your messaging in regards to their interest of funding. Okay, so kind of aligning your pitch to their interests. Secondly, you set up meetings. It's better, in my opinion, to do things face-to-face, even in the brink of COVID. Be safe about it. But that face-to-face interaction when you're talking with money it really helps. So you schedule meetings, you have conversations with them, you give them the plan to be able to look at, and you request, their feedback. We would love to be able to hear from them. Depending on how strong you think the potential is to woo them or sway them to fund you, you keep the door open for communication dialogue. What did you see that you liked? What are some things that you needed more clarity about? And you just kind of keep a balance between being vulnerable and open for feedback, but then also that, hey, I know what I'm doing and I'm looking for partnerships around there, but I'm never afraid to do better based on what you share. And it almost becomes, for good funders here, they take on kind of a mentoring role in your company. Those are kind of some of the better types of relationships to get in. But I will say, if there's anyone who's interested in seeing how this stuff gets done, then I would encourage you. There is a meeting that happens between pitchers and investors called, it escaped me. It's not Accelerate the Heartland anymore. They changed their names. It's AVP. I'll have to look at what the acronym stands for. But basically, they invite 2 entrepreneurs to come and pitch in person for investors. And investment deals get done or they don't through that structure. But I've been invited into the room to just kind of watch and see. And it is something, but that business plan is key. And that executive summary is key, even in those pitch presentations. And I'm sorry that name escapes me, but it's AVP. And I'll look that up and I'll provide some of that information. It's not necessarily a closed session, but it's not public either. So an invitation would be needed for us to be able to go and just watch. Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Any other questions you want to put for the good of the whole?
The AVP, the same meeting that the councilwoman is a part of?
The councilwoman?
Yeah, I believe she mentioned that to me, to come and pitch before.
Okay, so that's called 1 Million Cups.
Okay.
1 Million Cups happens every Wednesday. Sorry about that pop out, Mark. 1 Million Cups happens every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. When they were doing it in person, it was at the Advanced Learning Library. Now they're doing it virtually. And so they are listed on Facebook, and they do have a website that you can go ahead and go to. And if you're interested in pitching or at least watching what happens, then that's good to do. With, there we go. Welcome back, Ty. Sorry about that. With the 1 Million Cups, the idea is similar kind of to AVP, what I mentioned, but 2 entrepreneurs get to share about their company, and then they ask questions and they answer questions from the audience. And that one's more so of a networking. It's a great awareness piece. Mark, didn't you guys present at 1 Million Cups?
We didn't. We were supposed to, and we just didn't.
Okay. Yeah. Same kind of concept, Nicole, same type of experience, but the audience is different with this Accelerate Venture Partners. That's what it stands for. Inside of Accelerate Venture Partners, the people who come are angel investors or actual investors, equity investors of companies. So you're pitching, but you're pitching for money. You're not pitching for just awareness, like at one. Great question.
Now, Miss, what was that again?
It's Accelerate Venture Partners. It's called AVP, and they are an investment group. There is an accelerator downtown. It used to be called E2E. Now it's called Nextus. And Nextus brings together this investor group. So like I said, it's not a public or open type meeting, but it's not closed either. If we have an invitation, we can just come. And the invitation has been extended to me to bring others, but then COVID hit. And so they haven't been meeting in person. So, but if that's something you all want to see, I absolutely encourage being in that room and seeing there's not a lot of people of color, as investors in the room. They have had a couple people of color to present or pitch their companies, but it's a different type of environment to play in, but it's good to see. Any other questions?
No, so then you would definitely recommend having your elevator pitch perfected for that type of situation?
Oh yeah, yes. So how the meetings will go is that the facilitator from Nexus will welcome everyone. They would then pass out these sheets, one including an executive summary, and then a scoring sheet for each person who was in the room. If you were interested, based on what you read and what you saw from that presenter, then you put it down on the scoring sheet, and you were connected after the meeting with that particular company to either discuss a potential investment or not.
So I was kind of in and out. So going back to what you were saying about knowing your numbers is particularly important in that particular situation.
Oh yes, they will ask you questions about your numbers, your profitability. They want to know about if you are offering ownership percentages, then what that looks like. Is it worth it? When will they be paid back? In order to answer those questions, you have to be knowledgeable about your inner workings of your cash flow and your profit loss margin, things of that nature with your financials.
Sounds like Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are organizations in Wichita that can help business owners to be able to put together strong financials. And those include the Kansas Small Business Development Center located at 29th and Oliver. They have consultants there who will actually sit with you and dive into your business financials with you, put together your financials on Excel spreadsheets, and get them if you're looking for investors or if you're looking for lender attention, then they will get your financials prepped for you. It is a free service that they do, and it's confidential. And I can speak to clarity with that because I served with Kansas Small Business Development Center for many years before going solo dolo with Create Campaign over at Founders Grove. And we are still very much partners. If you are looking for business plan assistance, while the Kansas Small Business Development Center does work to kind of look and review business plans, they do not help you write them other than providing you financials. And then also if you need access to marketing databases, that is how they can help, but they do not write for you. I would encourage you, if you need a little bit more basic assistance with your business plan, to connect with SCORE. SCORE Mentors, they are the Society of Retired Executives. And what they will do is, in free consulting as well, they will walk you by hand in hand with your business plan. They will not write it for you, but they will take more time with you than what KSBDC perhaps has, based on their charter and their objectives as an organization.
So a pitch deck is important as well. To
sorry?
start working on your pitch deck. Working on your pitch deck.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and for those, that terminology just means essential PowerPoint that goes along with your business plan, so that when you are making formal presentations to an audience, that you have a visual behind you that gives them highlighted information, but specific information and more visual information than perhaps what a business plan can have. All this to say, business plans don't need to be 85 pages long. They don't. The one-page executive summary, write specifically. Don't try to impress people by writing like it's a thesis. It needs to be simple, straight to the point. What bulks up a business plan are all those financial documents, and then if you want to have attachments of bios, resumes, things like that. But your actual plan itself, those components we went through today, write quick, write strong, write straight to the point.
Christina, you said you would send a list of all these resources to us. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Not only will you receive the PowerPoint that has my talking notes from them, and the PowerPoint does have links in them, you're also going to receive some Create Campaign goodies. We do have a template that you can begin for your business plan. If you're not quite ready to write a full business plan, then there is what's called a business model canvas. And basically it's just a graphic on one page that has different areas for you to begin to write down information inside of those areas. That's a stepping stage or step for you to be able to transition to write your business plan. So with that being said, we are at 12:58. And again, like I said, I honor people's time. So what we are going to do is expect a follow-up email from me that includes not only the resources that I mentioned today, but also it includes a reflection. We need to know, was this information valuable? How I presented it, was that decent and in order and all right? Or where are some areas of growth? I also want to encourage you all that if you have the time and the opportunity, we do have a week-long's worth of topics. Tomorrow is how to, build how to build a financial plan for your business. And we will have an accountant join us to kind of go more in depth in those financial reports that I spoke about today. Again, on behalf of Create Campaign and myself, Christina Long, it was a pleasure to have you all here today. We are only an email away. If you have follow-up questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're at info@createcampaignks.com, info@createcampaignks.com. We thank you all very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all and working with you all more so in the future. You all take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.